You when you're at about 8 minutes. Oh, thank you so much. Also for
Sorry.
the recording as well. All right, take it away whenever you are ready.
Great, thank you so much. I'll keep my camera off. I have a back injury I'm recovering for, but let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. Oh, I need host to enable participant screen sharing.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Okay, go for it.
I think everyone can see that presentation now.
It is loading for me, but it looks like
Oh, it's
yes, it
loading.
should be
Pause.
working.
Is that working now? There we go.
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. So my name is Ben Gould. I am volunteer with Berkeley Citizens for Safe Streets. I'm excited to present to you about our measure tonight. So we are Berkeley Citizens for Safe Streets. We're a very broad, diverse coalition of Berkeley residents, including commissioners, former elected officials, community activists and organizers, and just ordinary neighborhood volunteers. Excited to work on this measure to fix our streets and make them safe. We're also proud to be supported by the Berkeley Firefighters Association, UAW Region 6, Walk Bike Berkeley, and Berkeley Neighbors for Housing and Climate Action. So our measure, the Sustainable and Accountable Funding for Equitable Street Transformation, Revitalization, Enhancements, and Essential Traffic Safety Initiative, would fix Berkeley's very neglected streets and sidewalks, implement essential traffic safety improvements to benefit all road users, enhance the environmental sustainability and climate resilience of our public spaces, and ultimately transform Berkeley's future into one where it is safe, easy, and fun to get around, regardless of age, mobility, or mode choice. So the problem is that Berkeley's streets and sidewalks are literally falling apart from decades of wear and tear and underfunding. A recent city audit report found that Berkeley's streets are quote unquote at risk with an overall pavement condition index or PCI of 57 out of 100. That's definitely a failing grade in my book. Sidewalks, we know, are hazardous to pedestrians and particularly people with disabilities, and our pedestrian paths need improvements as well. We think that now is not the time to kick the can down the road. So what's the opportunity here? Berkeley streets were designed over 100 years ago. They weren't designed with things like SUVs and lifted trucks, cell phones, and other distractions in mind, aging Berkeley residents, or climate change. And we know just earlier this week, tragically, a bicyclist was struck on San Pablo Avenue, suffered a very severe leg injury. We've seen far too many severe and fatal traffic crashes and collisions for pedestrians, cyclists, and even automobile drivers as well, just trying to get around on our streets. And so our measure thinks that we can rebuild our streets, we can fix them, make them functional again, and also make design changes at the same time to improve safety and resilience. So the measure is a split roll parcel tax that's expected to raise about $235 million over the next 14 years. The money is allocated as follows. About 45% goes to street repairs and reconstruction, 15% goes to sidewalks, 30% goes to safety improvements, and 10% goes to environmental enhancements and other permitted uses. So we think this should be enough to get the citywide pavement condition index up to about 70, which is considered good by Bay Area standards. Fix the backlog of sidewalk and pathway repairs, and then also directly fund about half of pedestrian and bicycle plans, also help fund some of the Safe Routes to Schools initiatives. And we think this can also be used as matching funds for additional grant money. So this should help significantly improve our ability to reach Vision Zero, or zero severe and fatal traffic crashes and pedestrian fatalities. So all projects funded by our measure must be consistent with an adopted city plan. There's not going to be any surprises. The items that the council has to pick and choose from are already listed in city plans. However, they do have the flexibility to pick which of those items they want to fund, because there's obviously way more things to do in Berkeley than we can possibly fund with one measure. And so we have opportunities for public input, both of the Transportation Commission and through public workshops, but City Council ultimately gets to decide what projects get funded and listens to the community on the priorities the community has. One feature of our measure is that safety improvements must be implemented concurrently when doing repaving. So we're not going to have issues like you pave a street and then go back in a few years to tear it up again and add in safety improvements. We're going to make sure that safety improvements are considered at the very beginning, initial design stages of any repair or reconstruction work that happens in the city. Some of the safety improvements we're looking to fund obviously include things like bicycle lanes, but most of the money actually would go towards pedestrian safety improvements we expect. This includes things like raised crosswalks, corner bulb outs at intersections, flashing beacons, stop signs, those kind of things, as well as things like street lighting, red no parking areas, wildfire evacuation signage routes, and speed limit signage. We also work closely with the firefighters to understand their emergency response needs, and we have allowed the safety funding to also be used to help improve emergency response times, so that if we have things like, traffic calming, things that slow down vehicle speeds, we're not impacting first responders who can need to be able to get to emergencies quickly. For resiliency and other climate enhancements, we're looking at things like bioswales to capture stormwater runoff or permeable pavement. We include street trees and parklets, as well as funding transit bus stop benches, so we don't have to have urban activists going out and putting their own in there. We can have city-funded ones going throughout the city. So that's the sort of the idea, outline, and goals of the measure. Our approach includes robust oversight and accounting. So we have triple oversight from the city council, city manager, the city auditor, as well as the Citizens Oversight Committee. We have public accountability through citywide workshops, an accessible web dashboard showing progress and updates, as well as public meetings, and expert review from qualified professionals appointed to the Citizen Oversight Committee to review city expenditures and ensure they're in line with the measure requirements. This is the strongest oversight and accountability of any adopted city funding measure, so we're really excited about these approaches. There's a few other safeguards. The city council has to maintain current funding commitment for street repaving, so they can't use this measure to backfill the general fund indirectly. We have an exemption for low-income homeowners and a 14-year sunset, so the measure doesn't go on indefinitely. There is a defined time period by which these goals should be achieved. Now, there is one other competing measure that's likely to make it on the ballot, and I just want to provide some quick highlights about that one. The main differences that we see, and if you are curious about that measure, you can ask them about it. The main differences that we see are that the other measure, quote unquote, fix the streets, would have half as much funding for street repair, half as much funding for safety improvements, and many more restrictions on what safety improvements could be implemented. So nothing for first responders, nothing for street lighting, nothing for safety outside of a handful of very particular spots, no safe routes to schools improvements. So we don't think that addresses the needs of most Berkeley residents, which is why we have our measure as safe streets. We're currently working to gather a little over 3,000 signatures for the ballot to qualify. We have 2 opportunities coming up later this month at Downtown Berkeley BART, and you can also find more information on our website to get involved, volunteer, or endorse. Happy to take any questions.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for this presentation. If anybody has any questions, raise your hand. I'll be prioritizing Young Dems. All right, I see one hand. Caleb, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for coming out and sharing about the important work that y'all are doing here. Know that this is a very important issue to our members, and me as someone who does not own a car and often walks places. So I guess a quick question is, maybe you could share a little bit of background about why there's dueling measures here. It feels like it's a little bit unusual for infrastructure items like this to see 2 groups that are both trying to put stuff on the ballot.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Caleb. There's 2 measures because initially we worked to bring together everyone who we thought would have a lot of input and insight onto this measure to work on it collaboratively. So we worked with, Walk Bike Berkeley, BNHCA, some of the student organizers, formerly from TFP, Telegraph for People. We worked with some of the Yes on L organizers, the Vision 2050 committee. We worked with some of the No on L organizers as well. But ultimately, some of the No on L organizers we were working with didn't want to see the level of safety funding that we thought was necessary for the city. And they also wanted to see a lower tax rate overall. So they split off, they did their own math, came back with those numbers that I shared earlier. But we think ultimately that's not the right approach for the city. Mainly differences over funding for safety, I think, was the big split there.
Thank you. That makes a lot. I appreciate the explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? Either raise your hands, or if you don't want to, or can't talk, you can type them in the chat as well, and I can read them out. Either DM them to me. Give it about 15 seconds for anybody to think of any additional questions.
I will just add, with the competing measure, whichever measure gets the most votes is the one that'll be implemented. We're both doing citizen initiatives because that's a lower threshold to pass at 50%, but there's two measures, so we have to get more votes than the other measure and above 50% in order for our measure to be successful.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that that clarification. It's an important or technical though important one.
Yeah.
All right. Last call. Any questions on safe streets? All right.
I have a process question for EBYD at least. Do we want to have a like a ballot vote to endorse Berkeley Safe Streets, or do we want to have a floor vote right now? Is there anybody interested in that?
Yeah. Any thoughts? I'm gonna posit that this is not super controversial an item. So I would suggest a floor vote to save some mix of Christina and I work on having to ballot it.
I'm gonna, unless anyone's opposed, I'm gonna motion to do a floor vote to endorse.
I can second that notion.
All right. Are you motioning to hold a floor vote or motioning to endorse on the floor?
You can just motion to endorse.
Okay, yeah, what Caleb said.
All right, cool. We have a motion in a second to endorse the Safe Streets Initiative. Let's try and do this quickly. Are there any objections to this motion? Seeing and hearing no objections, I'm gonna say motion passes. All right, yay, easiest vote ever.
Thank you all. Appreciate your support.
Of course. Yeah, thank you so much for coming by. We really appreciate it. All right. And we have one more presentation about safe communities. Josh, I see you here. Are you going to be the only presenter, or is it going to be a group of folks presenting?
Hello there. I will be the only presenter and I will share my screen.
Sounds great.
That works.
I've allocated 15 minutes for this item. I will privately DM you when 8 minutes has elapsed, since we're going to try and do about 10 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for questions. Take it away.
Sounds good. Can everyone see the screen? Just confirming, looks good. Awesome. Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me. My name is Josh Gunter. I'm with the Trans Bay Coalition, here to talk to you about the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act, otherwise known as HR 7039, which is introduced in the House by Representative Hank Johnson of Georgia. Before I get in talking to the bill, first of all, who is Trans Bay Coalition? We are a grassroots public transit advocacy group that spans across the Bay Area. You can think of us as a collection of all the different agency and city-specific transit groups that come together and share learnings and work together to advance regional priorities to the Bay Area's transportation challenges. Speaking of challenges, traffic's back and often worse than it was pre-pandemic. On the screen here, we're looking at traffic in the Bay Area in December 2020 and December 2021 compared to 2019. So as you can see, we're pretty much back at 100% in terms of congestion. And this was a couple of years ago. So this trend has only gotten worse and will continue to worsen if we continue to invest in car-dependent infrastructure. At the same time traffic is back, transit ridership was decimated by the pandemic and has been quite slow to recover. Transit agencies across California are sitting still at about anywhere between 32 to 80% of their pre-pandemic ridership levels, with a pretty wide variation. But across the board, transit ridership is still lagging behind how traffic has bounced back. And this sets up a structural problem. So while ridership has decreased and revenues decreased, costs are the same or increasing. So what we call the transit death spiral happens, where with lower revenues, you're in a funding crisis, you cut service or raise fares, which leads to fewer riders. We're seeing that happen with AC Transit and Realign, essentially kind of entering this period where we're starting to enter where fewer riders, lower revenues, funding crisis, which sets up an ongoing issue. And this hurts all Californians. Car dependency raises the cost of living. When people don't have transit options, they drive, which worsens traffic. inequality. So transit riders tend to be lower income in some of our most marginalized populations. And of course, climate change. When more people are driving, that is more emissions. So just to drive into a couple of the themes there, Californians who take transit, over 500,000 don't own a car, and 60% have incomes below $35,000. So by not investing in transit or by letting transit fail, we are failing some of the poorest Californians. Transit, the death spiral, will pollute our climate. So transportation is still the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. And our state's own 2050 climate goals presume that we will double the share of people who take transit. Double the amount of people who take transit. So if we're in a scenario where transit agencies are cutting, we have no hope of meeting those goals. And cars are a major source of smog and dirty air. And one of the easiest tools that we have today in our trains and buses can have a very strong and immediate impact on that. Just a couple of sort of scenarios that I pulled out here just to show how regionally car dependent the Bay Area is, which I think kind of, many people may know intuitively, but I live in West Oakland. If I wanted to go to a Roots game down at Cal State East Bay, it would take me 3 times as long via transit as it would via car. Another example, if you live in Berkeley, and say you are a law student or a lawyer who is trying to do outreach at the Santa Rita jail out in Dublin, that would take you nearly 2 hours to get there via transit and 38 minutes via car. So again, 3 times as long. And this is today. So if we're talking about decreasing transit, increasing wait times, this only gets worse. So one solution that we are advocating for and putting a lot of energy behind is this bill, HR 7093. And what it does is we'll provide $20 billion for transit operations over 4 years for a total of $80 billion nationally, focused on operations. Traditionally, the federal government will fund capital, so new buses, new rail lines, but they will not fund operations in general. So this bill is targeted towards higher frequencies, expanding service, increasing reliability, and public health and safety. So this translates to hiring more drivers, hiring more people to do checks on the trains, doing surveys to find out what riders want for reliability, and really will allow agencies to expand service. It's intended so that they do not have to cut should they reach fiscal cliffs. Specifically, the California will get $3 billion and $1.3 billion for the Bay Area, divided between primarily BART, but all the agencies will have some share. So that's a lot of bus, train, and ferry service. You also have maybe heard about a regional transit funding measure that's coming up in 2026. This bill would be in addition to that. Right now, BART and AC Transit are focused more on that regional transit funding measure because that is a clear and more established path. This bill, and really why we are supporting it, is to show our legislators in Congress at the federal level that we also need federal funding in addition to regional funding. The federal funding, even if this bill does not pass the House and the Senate and eventually make it to the president, by showing grassroots support for it, we are showing our federal leaders that we want federal funding for transit. And so that's why we've are investing effort into getting folks to sign on. Thankfully, our Bay Area congressional delegation is very supportive. 2 representatives in the East Bay, Garamendi and Swalwell, have not yet signed on. So we would love the East Bay Young Democrats' support to sign on to this letter to our representatives to be co-sponsors along these organizations. Individually, you can also send letters through the page. I'll drop through an Action Network page, and I'll drop that in the chat. I'm happy to take any questions. I'd also just like to plug that everyone here and interested in transit is invited to Trans Bay Coalition Happy Hour in Hayward, our first post-pandemic, at the world famous Turf Club on Saturday, May 4th from 3 to 5 p.m. So with that, I am happy to take any questions.
Yeah, you were about 8 minutes exactly. All right, same procedure as before. Not a very complicated one. If you have any questions about the Stronger Communities Initiative or anything that Josh has said, raise your hands or put it in the chat. I'll prioritize questions from Young Dems. All right, we have a question in the chat that says, can you put the RSVP link in the chat, please?
Yes, I will do that.
Sounds great. Love the question. All right, I'm gonna see Erica, you had your hand up. Do you have a question?
Hey, that was my question about the RSVP link. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Any additional questions? I think we're generally a bunch that supports transit here. All right, I see a thumbs up. I see hearts. All right. It seems that this is about as uncontroversial as the last one, based upon the preponderance of hearts. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to endorse the Stronger Communities Act, should the body wish to endorse on the floor.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, East Bay Young Dems has endorsed the the safer, nope, I was right the first time. The
Stronger.
Stronger Communities Act. All right, thank you so much for stopping by, and thank you so much for all of this information and presentation. And we will try and get the RSVP link out in an email or to members. Thank you so much again.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Have a great one.
All right. And policy-wise, last but not least, we have one more item, a decidedly less fun item, not about transit or infrastructure, but about the set of packages, the anti-LGBTQ and specifically anti-trans package of legislation that conservative groups are trying to get onto the ballot in November. It's a teensy bit complicated, so I wrote up a summary on a Google document that I will drop in the chat. And I was hoping to get somebody from the Decline to Sign campaign out, but unfortunately, scheduling wise, that just didn't work. So I'll talk a little bit about it and hoping that the body can endorse a position of Decline to Sign. Basically, what's happened is, again, conservative anti-LGBTQ forces have come together to do this package initiative that, among other things, would ban trans affirming care for youth in the state of California, would ban trans girls from being able to play school sports, and require schools to notify parents if a child wishes to change genders or exhibits general transness. I get that that's an offensive term. But so this is really bad news bears as a queer person, right? Very clear that this is bad. I think as Democrats, especially as young Democrats, we understand why this is bad. So I don't feel the need to explain further. Then, as they're trying to gather signatures, they have until May 28th to do so. Attorney General Rob Bonta correctly named this set of initiatives the Restrict the Rights of Trans Youth statute initiative. Clearly, the people who are supporting the initiative are not too happy with this, claiming that, or trying to sue, claiming that it's fundamentally unfair. It's not. It describes what this initiative and this policy does. So hoping that it's not too hard an ask to get East Bay Young Dems to take a position of Decline to Sign. And CYD's convention is going to happen before the signature deadline, just before May 28th. So timing wise, hoping that perhaps we can get this up the chain to CYD and have them take an official Decline to Sign petition. Again, hoping that this is not super controversial in Democratic circles, but more than happy to answer any questions about what's going on or why, sorry, the Campanile has decided to ring. Are there any questions? Raise your hands, put it in the chat. All right. Hoping that the bell tower stops. I think we've got 2 or 3 more rings. Done. Might be done. Think it's done. Think it's done 7. All right. Seeing I don't see any questions in the chat, nor do I see any hands raised. So that communicates to me this is probably rather uncontroversial as well. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to take a position of decline to sign on the Restrict Transgender Youth statute initiative that is in the signature gathering phase, and hopefully won't, but potentially will be on the ballot in November.
Seconded.
All right. Are there any objections? Seeing and hearing no objections, the motion passes, and we have handled all of our policy items in a relatively expedient fashion. I'm super glad we were able to get through all of this in a rather uncontroversial manner. So now I'll hand it back to Christina to handle the political affairs and candidate side of this.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually going to pass it to Caleb. Thank you, Caleb, for volunteering to take over because my internet still keeps cutting out. And I'm going to, we're trying to give candidates a certain amount of time to speak, which is hard when your internet cuts out in the middle of the Zoom meeting. So I'm going to pass it to Caleb. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we're going to start off with 3 minutes for each candidate. Let's see, Christina, did you have a process for which order we were going to do the candidates?
I'm going to start with, I was just going to start with like alphabetical. So first would be Sully, and then Alana, then Ruben, and then Igor, and then you just like switch to the next person. I can put the order in the chat and then we can just like, does that make sense?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So we'll just get that order down. Okay, so Solly, well, welcome. You're here first. So please feel free to begin whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. My name is Solly Alpert. I'm the vice chair of the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board. I served as a legislative assistant at the Berkeley City Council from 2017 to 2022. And I'm running for District 4, and I'm proud to be the candidate of the progressive movement in Berkeley. There's so many organizations that I'm proud to be standing with and behind. I'm the sole endorsed candidate of SCIU 10-1, East Bay DSA, the California Working Families Party, the Wellstone Democratic Renewal Club, Our Revolution East Bay, and also notably the youth political organizations in Berkeley, the Cal Berkeley Democrats, the YDSA at Cal, and Telegraph for People, who've all endorsed my campaign. I am proud to have a track record of progressive accomplishments in the city of Berkeley, and I truly believe that we don't have to choose between groundbreaking progressive achievements and the nuts and bolts of governance. I think there's been a very rotten culture that has emerged both within City Hall and within some senior management in the city of Berkeley that says, oh, well, all these historic firsts that Berkeley did in its past. We were the first city to be a sanctuary city for folks fleeing the Vietnam War draft. We were the first city to offer the benefits for same-sex couples of city staff. We were the first city to do curb cuts so that disabled folks could easily get on and off our sidewalks. And I think that there's some folks at City Hall who say, well, those are all good parts of our history and we can be proud of them, but we just really have to, we can't bother ourselves or busy ourselves with these kind of groundbreaking progressive firsts. We just have to deal with the nuts and bolts of governance. And then they also fail to deliver on the nuts and bolts of governance. And I think that we don't have to choose. I think that those things can go hand in hand. I am, really excited to be running a campaign based in labor values, based in tenant rights values, based in the values of working families. I want to strengthen our rent control protections in the city of Berkeley. I want to strengthen our labor protections in the city of Berkeley. And I want to do that with all of you. I want to work together with our community to make that happen. I'll just give you a few examples of my experience. And also, is there a timer anywhere? I'm not sure what kind of signals I'm going to get.
1 minute.
Cool. I was proud to help write and pass the Fair Workweek Ordinance, which brought landmark labor protections for shift workers in the city of Berkeley. I'm proud to be the co-author of a ballot measure we're gathering signatures for right now that will strengthen rent control and tenant protections and give tenants the right to form tenant associations so they can meet and confer and negotiate with their landlord. And I'm proud to have been a union activist. When I was legislative aide at the city council, I helped organize my colleagues into joining SEIU 10-1, the city workers union, and then worked as a union steward and delegate from 2019 to 2022. And so I come at this from many different perspectives: a labor activist, a tenants activist, a legislative aide, an elected official on the Berkeley Rent Board. And I hope to earn all your support today as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out tonight. All right. Sorry, one moment. Next up, I believe we've got Alana. Are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm
Excellent.
Ilana Auerbach, and I am running to reclaim our city for the people and away from corporate and developer interests. I will bring integrity, accountability, and compassion to the Berkeley City government. I am deeply rooted in this community. I'm the only candidate who's raised a family in District 4. My son attends Berkeley High. I've lived here for 18 years and have been immersed in local activism and advocacy. I've been involved in reimagining public safety efforts, police oversight. I've investigated the Berkeley Police, the TextGate with other Berkeley Cop Watch members, as well as data analysts, and found that, no surprise, that the city of Berkeley does criminalize poverty. I've tended to our unhoused neighbors, connecting them with services and providing them with shelter. I've supported small businesses to stay afloat. I've worked for tenants' rights to expand tenant protections. I was on the Berkeley Tenants Union Steering Committee. I've advocated for workers' rights and stood on picket lines along with our workers, with city workers, with UC grad students, with Lifelong Medical. I've advocated for senior rights and disability rights, and organized side by side with a lot of youth at People's Park, and currently am organizing with a lot of young people to create a ceasefire in Gaza, both having the Berkeley City Council pass a resolution, as well as with a group of Berkeley Unified School District parents to ensure that our kids are taught Palestine and Palestine ancestry and so forth. I've also advocated with transgender youth at Berkeley High for them to have more bathrooms. I had a career in mediation. I am skilled and have much experience in bringing people together to communicate with respect and resolve their issues collaboratively. We have a lot of combative environment in our city government, not only at the city council with the city manager, but really what we hear from city staff as well. So I feel that I am uniquely qualified to be able to go in and help lead a clearing of what has been, and then create new agreements and a new foundation to build trust and respect so that we begin to attract more and more great workers and have accountability and integrity. I am dedicated to working with all of the community organizations, all of the political organizations, and being a voice of and for the people of District 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Next up, we're going to have Ruben.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ruben Hernandez Story. I am the Chief of Staff for Berkeley City Councilmember Terry Taplin, and proud to be the president of the East Bay Young Democrats, member since 2018, and past president of the Latino Young Democrats of the East Bay. As a Mexican immigrant and first-generation college graduate who grew up in Section 8 housing, I know firsthand the kinds of sacrifices that working people have to make to support themselves and their families. I have been committed to public service ever since I graduated, to work to ensure that disadvantaged communities receive the support they need. I've worked in federal, state, and local government offices, including here in Richmond and Berkeley. And I've worked on several initiatives that range from gun violence prevention to criminal justice reform, creating housing near BART stations, developing the West Berkeley Green New Deal, expanding bus and ferry service alongside public electric vehicle charging stations, and improving safety for pedestrians and cyclists. That's a very personal issue to me. I am a full-time pedestrian and transit rider, and we really need to make our streets safer for us so that we can walk and enjoy the amazing city that we have here in Berkeley, especially District 4 with downtown nearby. After moving to Berkeley in 2018, I immediately became involved again with this organization. That's where I found my home. Both of these clubs that are co-hosting tonight, have helped me help them, and we've uplifted voices of young people, people of color. And so, as a public servant, an organizer, and a leader with over 8 years of direct experience doing the work behind the scenes, I'm ready to step up. I believe I'm the one that's best positioned to build those coalitions and the consensus necessary to advance the city council's legacy of progressive and pragmatic policies and reforms. My desire to continue serving the community that has welcomed me and my fiance is what's driving this campaign. I have the experience necessary to make those right decisions, the ability to bring people together despite our divides, in order to ensure that all District 4 residents feel heard, they feel validated, and they're at the table. I will fight strongly to address the housing affordability crisis, climate and mobility justice, and safe streets, and equitable economic recovery that centers worker protections. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Building Trades Council of Alameda County, the NorCal Carpenters Union, the Berkeley Firefighters Union, the East Bay Stonewall Democratic Club, Alameda County Sheriff Yesenia Sanchez, BART Director Rebecca Saltzman, East Bay Regional Parks Director Elizabeth Eccles, the Mayor and a supermajority of the City Council, and various other East Bay community leaders, such as Berkeley School Board Vice President Khadijah Brown, and leaders in Alameda County, Contra Costa County, various boards and commissioners who work here at the City of Berkeley, who volunteer their time, and various other District 4 leaders. It would be an honor to earn your support and an endorsement. Appreciate y'all.
And thank you, Ruben. Finally, we have, I believe, Igor. All right, you may begin when you're ready.
Me?
Say again, let's make sure we're hearing you
Great.
okay.
Let's make sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes, though we are getting a message that your network bandwidth is low, so you might consider going to audio only.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll keep talking unless you tell me I need to go off camera. I like to do this face-to-face. Thank you so much, East Bay Young Democrats and Latine Young Democrats of the East Bay. It is an honor to be here today and to come before you to ask for your second rank support for these endorsements. I have spent more than 20 years in Berkeley as an immigrant from Ukraine, who by the age of 10 moved 8 times. Every single time when I was starting to put down roots, having to move again, left an indelible impression and centered me around the work to make sure that Berkeley, which I have been so blessed to call my home for half of my life, is a home for everyone else. I'm also inspired by generations of Berkeleyans who've made a profound difference in the world, and of course, rooted in my own lived experience as an immigrant from Ukraine. It's easy to espouse bold, progressive ideas. Throughout my public service career, I have gotten them accomplished, from helping craft implementing legislation and securing funding for the Berkeley Way Hope Center, which is a revolutionary, extremely low and no income affordable housing project with wraparound services in downtown Berkeley, to renaming a street near Shattuck to Kala Bagai's Way to commemorate an unsung hero, Finally, she's getting the shine that she deserved in her life. To getting safety lights installed for pedestrians and bicyclists on a high collision intersection. To working with the former District 4 council member to electrify our buildings, legislation now adopted in hundreds of other jurisdictions nationally. There is no part of District 4, Berkeley, or the region that my work hasn't touched. If I have the honor of being elected to the City Council, I will focus like a laser in addressing our housing unaffordability crisis, using all 3 Ps of housing: production, protection, preservation, helping our downtown businesses thrive, improving safety downtown, championing bold climate leadership, and making the entire city a safer, more inviting, and better connected place to walk, bike, and use transit. I have the deep honor of being endorsed by nearly 100 elected officials and community leaders, including Sheriff Yesenia Sanchez, Mayor Jesse Arreguin, a majority of the Berkeley City Council and Berkeley School Board, and would be honored to earn your second rank vote tonight.
All right, and thank you, Igor. And thank you to all the candidates for joining us again tonight. We are now going to be ready to take some questions from people here, with priority in answering questions from the Young Democrats in attendance tonight. For the responses to questions, we are going to be doing 1 minute each, and we are asking for questions that all the candidates can answer, please. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand and we'll start calling on people. Maybe just give folks a minute to think about it. So maybe I can go ahead and actually get the creative juices flowing as people are coming up with questions. Perhaps one question is, what is one position that you have that you think might be unpopular in your community, but is still important to hold on to? So we're going to take answers to that question, sort of offset one from the question order. So we'll start with Alana, then Ruben, then Igor, then Solly, and then we'll sort of continue to shift by one as additional questions come in.
Great, thank you. One position, I think there would be many, but one, as a recovering Zionist and practicing Jew, I feel one position that some in the community would be unhappy with is passing a ceasefire resolution in Gaza. And I feel like it is imperative that we do this because our national leaders are not listening. There's a genocide that's being live streamed, and we have to do something. All the surrounding jurisdictions have already passed ceasefire resolutions. The vast majority of people in Berkeley want a ceasefire resolution. And so, and I know that the majority of the council doesn't at this point. So that would be, unfavorable to the Zionist community that I am encouraging to turn inward and deal with the trauma that is being stirred up by what's happening now. And certainly there's anti-Semitism, and we have to ensure that all people are safe and all our young people are safe, including those of Arab, Palestinian, and Muslim descent. Thank you.
Thank you. Just reset my stopwatch here. And now next up, we'll go to Ruben. Same question.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say it would be centered around public safety. I think public safety is becoming a more serious than ever conversation across the East Bay. And one thing that I've heard a lot from folks on the campaign trail or at meet and greets is that they feel that the city and let alone the district has not been well represented when it comes to uplifting all different perspectives on public safety. Folks want to be able to go downtown Berkeley after the sun goes down, but they don't really feel comfortable. Same thing like walking our streets. They're so poorly lit at night. People don't feel safe in terms of also safe streets and cars, and when they're trying to walk with their kids or have their kids bike around. So I think the position of really being able to listen to the community who wants to invest in community policing, help our officers have the tools necessary to address violent crime and retail theft, and so many things. Just having a conversation is controversial for some, even though it shouldn't be. And that's what I would advocate for, is having those conversations. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ruben. Next up, we've got Igor, same question. And I also, oh, sorry, just before we do that, just want to note, I did see that question from Nelson. We'll do that one next. Thank you. Sorry, please go ahead, Igor. My apologies.
Thank you so much. Less popular policy than I would have hoped is the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. I just put in the chat a white paper that I wrote when it first emerged on the scene. And in those years, I have been working to forge consensus with communities with diverse opinions on this issue. At its heart, it's an opportunity for renters like myself to someday be in a position where we can own the property that we are in. It does not take away property rights, and I believe that it can be tailored in a very specific way and crafted so that it protects renters, it puts them on a pathway to home ownership, and it also ensures that the concerns of small property owners are taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Igor. All right, last for this question, we have Solly. Please begin when ready. After I note that Gordon will get that question, not next, but the one after. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to have less street parking in the hills. And that is something that is a sacrifice that we're going to have to ask people to make. It's certainly not comfortable, and then there are going to be a lot of folks who are going to not be very happy about it. But fire safety is a very real issue in the city of Berkeley. Folks may not realize, but Berkeley is actually home to one of the most dangerous places for fire in the entire state, Panoramic Hill. And right now, there are a lot of streets in the hills that are windy, that are narrow, and that currently have too much parking. And that we need to red tag some, or not red tag, but paint red some of those curbs in order to make sure that our firefighters can access those streets and that folks can evacuate safely if there is a fire. And like I said, it's not going to be popular with some folks, but when it comes to public safety, especially fire evacuation, that's the sacrifice we need to make.
Okay, thank you for that answer. We'll now move to the next question, which, sorry, I'm just going back up to it again, is what projects can City of Berkeley lead that will help drive regional economic development? So the order for that question is going to be Ruben, followed by Igor, followed by Solly, followed by Alana. Okay. So please begin when ready. 1 minute once again.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the things that we really need to work on is finding out ways that we can connect our economic centers. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about working on is a lot of transportation related initiatives that can really connect all our cities together and get people from point A to point B a lot quicker. Items such as the bus rapid transit, which I'm honored to have worked with and led in Councilmember Taplin's office to study that from the Berkeley Marina, down University and Shattuck, and would later connect to Telegraph, and all the idea was to connect us from here to Oakland, all the way south up to Richmond, you name it. I think the more that we're able to get folks, we have to tackle it from a lot of angles. If we're able to move folks faster to other cities to help each other's economic centers thrive. We build more housing, transit-oriented development housing, so folks can live and work and eat just right nearby without relying on cars. I think that's how we really activate those spaces, make it safe to walk, pedestrianize plazas as much as possible. I think we can do that regionally. Thank you.
And thank you. Now we'll have our answer from the next candidate. Same question.
On the Zoning Adjustments Board, I have been proud to approve over 10,000 units of housing at every affordability level, prioritizing affordable housing in every part of Berkeley. The heart of downtown, downtown being the heart of Berkeley, has an opportunity to be a regional hub and a model. Along with that housing, I have heard concerns from some small business owners about being impacted by construction and even having to relocate to other parts of Berkeley or close up shop. The pandemic is not quite over for many small business owners. And so my work is centered around making sure that small businesses are collocated with new projects that we approve, that they have a symbiotic relationship. There are a lot of empty storefronts right now, unfortunately, along the San Pablo corridor as well. And to Ruben's point, bus rapid transit will help make sure we fill all of those vacant storefronts. Thank you.
Thank you. And sorry about the timing there. I got a direct message, and so I missent the 30-second reminder. Okay, so let me just reset my timer here. Then next candidate, same question.
I think that's me next.
Yes, that'd be correct.
Awesome. Thank you. Just wanted to confirm. Yeah, I agree with Ruben about transportation. Commerce should not stop at the border and economic activity. And we really need to invest in bus rapid transit. The failure to get bus rapid transit into Berkeley was a major error of the council in the past, and it's something that I would absolutely support revisiting and bringing back. Another way that we can make things easier between our cities, both for workers and for businesses, is standardizing and unifying our labor standards and enforcement. So having a labor standards regime that between Oakland and Berkeley and Emeryville and Albany and all these neighboring cities with kind of the same set of labor laws will make it easier to enforce those laws and protect workers. It'll also make compliance easier for businesses because they won't have different rules and regulations across different jurisdictions in the East Bay.
All right, thank you. And then I think we have one more response for this question. Please go ahead when ready.
I think our housing crisis is obviously statewide, and Berkeley can be at the forefront of setting an example of how we can fix it. We can show the rest of the state the way of innovative financing, of partnering with values-driven developers, and we can pioneer actual affordable housing without relying on the market rate housing. Also, what we need to do is create regionally a psychiatric hospital, which perhaps it will be funded by Proposition 1. A lot of our small businesses and neighbors, but really small businesses, are menaced by people who are mentally unstable. And so we need a crisis stabilization center in Berkeley, but we need a regional hospital that can tend to these people, and that then our people will come downtown, businesses will open here and in Oakland and all around the region. Thank you.
And thank you. We'll now turn to our next question, which is, thank you, from Gordon. How would you describe your political ideology, and is it flexible? So we're going to go for this question order. Sorry, just one moment. Igor, then Solly, then Alana, then Ruben, unless I'm off my one.
Thank you. I consider myself a proud, pragmatic progressive. And over the 20 years of service that I have given to the local Berkeley community, starting with former District 4 Council member Donna Spring when she appointed me to the Commission on Labor, my ideology has evolved in speaking to different perspectives. My values never have. An amazing Lejeune Alani leader, Corina Gould, had this to say about me. Igor has a proven track record of healing divides in our community. He is a proven consensus builder. Now more than ever do we need him on the city council. I have a demonstrated, proven record of listening to multiple perspectives, finding common values, and getting things done, including approving housing in my own backyard before the state housing laws, which I support, came into effect, making it a little bit easier. Thank you.
Thank you. Just going to take a moment to reset my timer here. All right, and now we'll take the same question to the next candidate.
Yeah, I'm a democratic socialist. I'm a progressive, and I don't know exactly. Would you describe your political ideology as flexible? I mean, I wouldn't describe the label as flexible, but I would certainly say that there's a difference between compromising and being compromised, right? That I'm always going to come to political situations rooted in my values, and but when we try to achieve results, we have to do what works. We have to do what works, and we have to do what we can, given our budget and our circumstances and the political nature of the the political nature we're facing. So, are my values flexible? No. But will I negotiate? Will I, work on the things before us based on those sets of circumstances? Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that answer to the question, and we'll now go to the next candidate for that question.
I am an eternal optimist and a visionary. I'm a bridge builder, and that is what I see is possible, which is what we need in our very polarized Berkeley, which is a reflection of the country and the larger world. And so what we need are people such as myself who bring people together, who bring compassion and love at the forefront, and a vision of that we can do this together. Of course, we're not all going to agree. We're not going to agree on many things, but can we bring the curiosity and be willing to listen to each other and just get a deeper understanding, not to agree, but just to appreciate the difference. So that is my ideology, is to work with everybody and to create solutions that are going to solve as many problems as we can. Thank you.
And thank you. Just one moment, let me reset this timer again. And then, I'm sorry, juggling a lot of things here. I think that we've got one more response, right? Cool, please begin when ready.
Yeah, I'm proud to strongly consider myself very left center. I grew up in Texas. I grew up in the Mexican American household where I saw a lot of the hatred that came from folks who didn't want people like me there. A lot of the history in Latin America from the U.S. But the reality, and I grew up listening to Rage Against the Machine, System of a Down. Bernie Sanders was the first person I ever voted for, and been a registered Democrat ever since. That's what activated me. But growing up in Texas, doing some time in Ohio when I was at college and at the Ohio Senate, I saw how quickly those divides can really splinter folks. I think here in the Bay Area, sometimes there's a bubble because we're a big tent party, and that makes it really difficult to get along with each other. But I think we have to be willing and able to listen to all perspectives faithfully. I would definitely say I'm very flexible in the sense that you can lead with a vision, but you're representing 15,000 people in this seat. You have to be willing to make sure everyone's heard before you make any decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, and I wonder if we have time for one more question. So yes, I do see we do have one more question here that Young Democrat submitted anonymously.
Yeah, I think we can do it.
Yeah, cool. So this is about specifically for Berkeley District 4. It sounds like there's been a lot of discussion of citywide issues. They're curious about what you have done specifically for this district. And the question order here, sorry, one moment. I think it goes to back to Solly first, unless I missed my guess. All right, please begin when ready.
Sure. One thing that I've worked on in District 4 is the Walnut Street property. So for those who may not be familiar, I think 1941 Walnut Street, 1921 Walnut Street was a building that was demolished by UC Berkeley, a rent-controlled apartment building that they demolished, and they refused to replace those units, those rent-controlled units. And they didn't pay for replacing them. And if the UC were a private developer, of course, they would not have been allowed to do that. They would have been required by state law to replace those rent-controlled units. And so, I fought aggressively to preserve those rent-controlled units or to have them replaced by the university. And I think that the council made a grave error in approving a settlement agreement with the university that didn't require the university agree to replacing those units, or in the future, rather, replacing units what they were demolishing them. And so, that was an 8-1 vote. And I would want to bring that back for discussion, ensuring that the university was not demolishing our limited stock of rent-controlled and affordable housing. I support student housing and student housing being constructed in the city of Berkeley. We need it badly, especially in the South Side and downtown. But we can do that without demolishing and not replacing our rent-controlled housing.
Thank you. Sorry, just reset my timer here. And then next candidate, same question, please.
Is that me?
Yes, that would. So
I
I'm
think it's me.
sorry.
Okay, fabulous. I too worked on 1921 Walnut to try and save that. Lots of creative things. I sent a care package to what was her name, who donated $300 million to create that luxury dorm for foreign students that unfortunately they ended up demolishing the 8 units. I've also worked to house people in this district, to feed them, to clothe them, to connect them with, shelter when it was an emergency. I have recently connected with Leticia at Berkeley High, who, I don't know if you all know that there are over about 100 homeless Berkeley High students. So we're doing a drive to collect more of what they need. I've already donated some of what they needed, some shampoo and conditioner and laundry detergent, and so many other things of the needs just here that I'm constantly addressing here in District 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and I also just want to take a moment to clarify. I got a question about whether we're going to be having closing statements this evening. I'm afraid that we don't have time for that. So in the meanwhile, I believe we have another candidate to answer the same question. Please begin when ready.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll go back to the bus rapid transit item that I mentioned earlier that would study the AC Transit's 51B. It would go from the Berkeley Marina down University and then down Shattuck, and eventually connects to Durand Telegraph in the hopeful future. Really advancing initiatives, because that item not only studies the potential of BRT, but parallel bicycle and sidewalk improvements, or pedestrian improvements, with a sharp focus on ADA compliance, and not just compliance, but superseding and going above and beyond what the federal law is. I was proud that in our office we met with members of the ADA community who took us on a walking tour to show us just exactly how not coherent all the intersections are and how dangerous there are. So that was really personal to me. And another thing is, in the absence of a council member in that district, a lot of business owners are well aware of Terry and our office's support. So we've been working with them to help them navigate the city and public safety concerns, and arts and cultural organizations who are worried of going under, just making sure those conversations are still happening. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you once again to all of our candidates for joining us this evening.
One more.
Do I
I'm
get
sorry.
to...
I'm terribly, terribly sorry. It's been a long day.
No
We
worries.
certainly wouldn't want to forget you. Please begin when ready.
No worries. I started ticking off my district-specific accomplishments, and I put in the chat again a list of all of my accomplishments. Bike lanes on Milvia, 2020 Berkeley Way, a revolutionary affordable housing project that allows folks to be able to leave homelessness behind and get a roof over their head. 1921 Walnut, I stood with the tenants in that rent control building, which unfortunately was slated for demolition by UC, and that's why I'm proud to have the endorsement of one of the former tenants who now lives in D4. So many things. There is no part of the district that my work hasn't touched. I thank you for your consideration as your number 2 vote after Ruben, who has done a great job as the president this year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and apologies again, Igor, for getting mixed up earlier. So once again, we've got links to websites from the candidates in the chat in case you'd like to read more about their platform. Should I hand it back over to you, Christina, for a discussion about the voting process?